And we have a very, very, very special guest today who is Chip. Kick off this Atlas Brew number 5. We will be speaking about the risk zones article, like the zones in Star Atlas, and we have a very, very, very special guest today who is Chip. Chip, I think you're here. Not sure if you need to set up like the push to talk thing. Just let me know if you can speak, if you can hear me. Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm excited. I knew that releasing this article was going to generate a dialogue and a discussion, and here we are, ready to have that. So it's been fun receiving all the community feedback and even receiving some formal proposals on fixes and changes. So I love it. It's all that's just great to see the community engaged so heavily in this game. So yeah, ready to kick off.
Yeah, and we love that you're here, man, ready to receive the feedback, to speak directly with the community. I think that I speak in the name of everybody here today. Thank you, man, for being here because, yeah, we really appreciate it. We really do.
Of course.
So, yeah, I'm also co-hosting, as always, with Jose. Jose, the number one, the man, the one and only. How are you, Jose?
I'm excited, Santi. Thank you for having me again. And yeah, Chip, it's awesome to have you here, man. This is one of the unique features about Star Atlas, The community is actually helping the game to develop in so many different ways. And one of the coolest ones is this share of content, share of thoughts. Like, I have never seen a member of the Star Atlas team, even before I joined formally Star Atlas, to say no to a conversation with me. I always had open doors for any kind of discussion. And this is just another instance of that. Chip is actually taking his time to chat live with us today. And this is something precious. This is something wonderful that actually reflects the ethos of our company, the decentralization, share with people the power to build our metaverse. And this is just one of the faces of this awesome feature of Star Atlas. So let us enjoy this conversation today, share experience, share thoughts, and make our game even better.
Yeah, let's do it. I just
Right
want to
on.
check.
I love that. Yep.
Yeah. I just want to check if you guys can hear me good because I see like the green thing on my name like
Loud and clear.
okay, perfect. So yeah, let's kick things off. I feel like what we should do is cover a little bit the article before we dive deep into it. Maybe Chip, you can help us. Um, we are sharing. Jose is sharing his screen right now. Everyone can go and just look at the live stream. He's sharing the article now. So Chip, maybe we can do like a. Can you do like a brief explanation on the article, so everyone is like in the same page?
Of course. So one of the main reasons why we wrote this article was first, we frequently talk about the map associated with the game at large by referencing the risk zones. So there's the security zones, there's the medium risk zones, and then there's the high risk zones, which includes the cataclysm. So I'll break down each one of them. The security zones are intended to be the faction safe zones. Those are the areas where the factions have locked down those regions with their own militarized forces, and for the most part, it's pretty settled. It's pretty safe. Players will engage in gameplay loops, and they will certainly run into enemies, but it won't be as high stress or tense of an environment to operate within. You're within the boundaries of the faction's security forces. Going into the medium risk zones, the faction is, if they were to try to include that within their security zone, they would overextend themselves. So they aren't able to necessarily secure that zone in its entirety. So what they do is there's faction patrols that will respond to grievances or reports of threats, and this is all facilitated by a bounty mechanism where if certain things are conducted, certain crimes are conducted or reported, then that aggressor will get a bounty, and players as bounty hunters will be incentivized to bounty hunt that aggressor, but also the players will also be incentivized to report and tag that the bounty, and then the cop security forces will respond to it. But the farther out you get into the medium risk zones, the less timely and less aggressive of a response by the cop forces. It would be a less timely or less aggressive response by the cop forces. And then going into the high risk zones, bounties are thrown out the window. You're not going to see cop forces in the high risk zone. They don't bother. It's just a free for all. Lots of PvP, high level PvE, and just a lot of the collisions and the high tension action and territorial disputes will happen in the high risk zones. That being said, the most lucrative and exotic resources especially are found in higher abundance in the high risk zones, but in particular the Cataclysm. In the Cataclysm, you'll see the highest density of Tufa units, which are the rocky sentient creatures that you've seen resident on the Tufa ship concept art. So that's essentially the map and the risk zones. And there as part of the article, there was discussion about the bounty mechanism, but as well as looting and insurances, which insurance packages were intended not necessarily prescriptive. We weren't saying this is exactly how they're going to be, but we wanted to say that likely insurance will exist in the game as a way to mitigate your risk associated with the high risk zone. But I guess I'll stop there because I know where the conversation will end up going, and I'd love to get to that. But before we get to those specific mechanisms, I guess I would open it up for questions or see if that covered the majority of the article for people, if everything is clear.
I think it was super clear, but let's open if anyone has any questions about the article, you have the man who created it, so just feel free to shoot.
I got a quick question for you, Chip.
And maybe we can start with the questions that regard the other aspects besides insurance, so we can leave, more time for this topic,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess my question is for Chip, just regarding the bounty system a little bit. I just wanted to get a little bit of clarification on one thing. So let's say I'm cruising along and I accidentally press the fire button and I kill a baby alien, and all of a sudden I get a bounty on my head. Is there any way for me to clear that bounty before everybody starts coming after me, or how would that work?
That's a good point. And first off, I think via the game interface, it will have to be pretty intentional to commit a crime. I recall in Elder Scrolls when you could accidentally press a button and steal something. I don't know if it'll be that easy to commit a crime. It'll have to be pretty intentional. But let's just hypothetically assume that you accidentally committed a crime and you're like, I don't want to be hunted. I think we would implement a way for you to just upfront pay the bounty. A bounty hunter wouldn't necessarily, depending on the severity of your bounty, if it's a low bounty, it wouldn't be a shoot first type of scenario. They would be they would report you, and then the cop forces would ask you to pay your bounty before they actually impound you or something like that.
That was really specific. I was scared for a moment.
Hey
Does that
guys,
make sense though?
this is Atlas. I think I understand you, man. You're talking about like an intergalactic court that you can visit and pay them the bounty, which clears your name. And just coming in as a perspective of a space cop with background in aviation, I'm thinking about. Obviously, like I always said before, the level of aggressiveness in this game will highly be influenced by this mechanism of how much, how do you judge the killing of a baby alien and killing of a exploration ship, let's say, or a mining ship in the Cataclysm high risk zone. So I think you guys are on the right track with that, and this will really help the game develop in the right way. Because it also stimulates the pirates, and it stimulates the cops and the bounty hunters. It's just interesting how will we adapt? Is it going to be more important for you to be aware of how you can use the cop services in the medium risk zone and the secure zone, or is it and then you learn how the cops fly? Maybe you can fly the same way as they do, like in formation with them or something. And then maybe it will be better that you have your own squad of guys that just does separate things. Doesn't care about the cops, but just focuses on their own mission.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a gradient of bounty aggression. So low-level crimes or just initial crimes that are somewhat petty wouldn't warrant getting attacked yet. It would warrant either hailing them and asking them to pay the bounty if they're the cop forces. If you see that, like if there's like, I imagine that there's going to be this bounty, like almost police radio system where players that are bounty hunters can tap into it and then know of the last known location of a crime that was committed, and then they fly around the vicinity of that area and they actually see that petty thief. I think the way I'm envisioning this works is that they can like ensnare. They can first hail, and they hail that ship. The ship ignores it, and then what happens is now they're authorized. Like after maybe a cooldown of 10 seconds later, it's been ignored. They can ensnare them and report them. And ensnaring would mean that they freeze them in place with a tractor beam or something. And then if at that point the bounty decides to really to break free of the ensnare and continue going, they've actually committed even more of a crime. Their bounty goes up, and now you're authorized to fire at them. So it's kind of escalates, but it doesn't immediately start at shoot them down. And then over time, if something, go ahead.
That's amazing. I'm saying this way of ensnaring would allow even, let's say, for citizens to make citizen arrest, right?
Yeah.
If I understand it correctly. And then this kind of weapon of let's say ensnaring and then making a citizen's arrest or police arrest or a military arrest would then be available to pirates as well. I know that Bomber is also interested, and I would like to also say that we should not ostracize pirates, and we should see how they might find their way in the galaxy, because I'm sure that I already had situations in Elite Dangerous where I saved the pirate in a tricky situation. Then how do you react to that? How do you react when, for example, the roles change, and then you have to be also aware of the cops coming and the bounties and all that. And maybe once they're arrested, then they have a choice to pay it or to go to prison, and then because there will be players that are just collecting bounties. They're just increasing the number on their table, on their list, and for some of the players in Elite Dangerous, that's the goal, to have the biggest bounty in the game. But what do we do about this?
Yeah, and I wonder how
Just
we
on
would
that-
balance. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, it's major easy. But why would anyone bother in the medium risk zone? Because you can't capture anything. You can't loot anything. Or, people just get insured, they get it back, you get a little bit of payment. So I think, this bounty thing sounds great, but...
Yeah, so I definitely understand the whole gripe behind the looting system, and I guess I'll immediately say at this point that we're revisiting the looting system and considering that say you destroy an asset in the medium risk zone. We don't want medium risk zone assets to be permanently destroyed, but maybe the loot that is dropped is whatever in the cargo holds, and then in the high risk zones, it's like this ascending gradient of going from the outer high risk zones to the inner in Cataclysm. More and more of that ship is dropped as salvage. I think that seems like a good approach in just thinking through it.
Yeah, but you've got to balance that though, right, to make it worthwhile, because it's the risk-reward thing of, if that cargo is then got to be worth a lot to offset the bounty being put on your head in the medium risk zone. I just think you still end up with the medium risk zone is pointless. It's just another safe zone because you've got the cops all over your arse. And then the high risk zone, is it worth it? I don't know. I think that's kind of, the root of my gripe with it, right, is the way it's written, it's totally unbalanced. So the risk-reward ratio seems wrong. So what's the point of you might...
It depends. If you imagine that for a pirate, it might be, you can have a situation that a pirate can destroy the ship and he can loot it. Like, he can have more advantage to just destroy the ship and then loot the wreckage. But it would be more realistic that if he doesn't destroy the ship, then, he can talk with the commander that, he has the gun on and he can say, listen, man, I'll help you get through this, and you'll give me, 20% of your hold, and that's it. Then and I'll escort you, to
You
the
might
pirate
find
base or whatever.
because that kind of segues into some of our topics.
That's what I'm saying.
So thanks for having us today. That sort of leads into one of our points, and I just really state it in a very simple way. Surrender versus immobilization versus destruction. What are the differences between the three? What are the risk and rewards for each of them? I think that kind of goes in line with both what you've said and Chip, though, right? One would be in the sense of the bounty hunters, in the immobilization. One would be in the sense of pirates with destruction, and one would be none at all, right? The surrender. So I think those are things to think about.
Yeah, so I think that what we could do now, before moving to another topic, is you guys, Bomber and MJ Easy, you prepare like a document, right? Like a proposal or something like that, correct?
They did. I read it before this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So what we may want to do is if you guys want to go over it, we can screen share the proposal, or one of you guys as well, because I think that it's already full the stream of Jose, and go a little bit over it, read it, and you guys can explain a little bit, and then we can start a discussion or the conversation around it, if it feels good.
My bad, just had a call come in.
We would like to hear your point of view on how things are arranged. Sure.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it was just to explain, for everyone who's listening, what you guys are saying and what you guys they thought about the article.
Oh, okay, easy.
Yeah, so everyone knows,
Okay, easy enough. I did submit the document for everyone if you want to take a look. I think it's in multiple channels. One is in the proposals, one is in
the Atlas Brew, and another in the Foundation Room if you're in there. I think 3 points that we really wanted to discuss if we're sort of leading the conversation and spearheading. The most important point to us was, and we really want to be clear on this, we truly want a fair and balanced system, and by no means are we looking for anything to be skewed in one way. These are just objective views of sort of the information we gathered, and predominantly the issues we had or concerns were centered around the insurance, less any other part of the proposal, or rather the article. So, jumping back and forth with this push to talk. So the biggest points we had was really insurance protection versus loot protection. So meaning, what really comes under the insurance umbrella? This pushed the point. So when you loot, what is lootable, right? The different categories, I think you mentioned in the article. If they're insured, you would get Atlas instead of the loot. When we think it should be reversed, right? As regular insurance would pay out in terms of cash, simple things like that. And then moving forward, we were curious how the smart contract would work for divvying up the loot. Is it similar to previous RPGs with, loot with groups, right, where the loot is distributed, the party leader decides. We were curious how and if that thought process has been started. That was really our biggest points. I think was really the biggest contention was the insurance, where we were really abrasive to the idea that someone could buy insurance and have zero risk to perform actions, whether it's just sending a ship out to gather information, or whether they're insuring a hull that is unattainable to loot, what have you. We just thought that was a little bit of too polarized, I think, in a view. And we know that this was all just to raise the discussion, so wanted to pose our side as well.
Yeah, so I first off, appreciate you taking the time to put that together. That was extremely helpful, and it did actually incite or elicit discussions amongst the team about this whole mechanism. And based out of the discussions, we've come to like a conclusion that likely insurance would be third party provided. First off, and that there would be loot dropped regardless of insurance or not in the high risk zones. So it would probably take the form of components, modules, salvage, metal, what have you, and that would be whether or not the player is insured or not. That would get dropped, but then one of the ideas, and just kind of theory crafting here, because it's not necessarily set in stone, but if a player were to, say, insure their item via more in-game mechanism and not third party, maybe they would get back a portion of the ship's like crafting reagents or the hull, but net loot and what they receive back, and then there would be some sort of burn. So maybe 10%, 15%, I'm just throwing numbers out here just for theory crafting, but maybe 10, 15% of the ship gets burned, 20, 25% of the ship gets dropped as loot, and then, 20, that didn't add up correctly, but a portion would go back to the player if they had insured, a portion goes as loot for the pirates or the aggressors, or even just PvE, and loot just gets dropped there for somebody to pick up. And then another portion gets burned. So I think that seems more palatable, and it actually provides some sort of risk associated with the high-risk zones. And PvP and PvE, the risky areas, do provide some sort of deflationary pressure on the assets of the game, which was the intended mechanism. We actually want there to be loss of assets in the high-risk zones over time, and not only have inflationary mechanisms in the game for ships and resources. So having said that, does that seem to answer some of those, if not all of those concerns?
First and foremost, I want to say thank you for taking the time to review it. And I do want to give a shout out to all the contributors. MJR, Groove, and Lordo all contributed, so it was not just me. I want to shout out to all of them. And that does answer a lot of our questions. As I mentioned, our biggest concern was that the way it was originally presented, it just gave us a sense that there was zero incentive to actually play in the high risk. But the way you've just prosed it, that makes it all the much better, right? We just want to ensure that for the players looking for high risk, that is still there. It is still a core function of the game, and we're very happy that we were able to contribute to that.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, and yeah, thanks to all those that you shout out. That was great. So yeah, I guess the key there is, before we move on to the next topic, but the key there is that there is a reason to do, like, there is a reward for conducting PvP in the risk zones. You should get a drop, and I agree that after like thinking more about it, it shouldn't matter if the asset is insured, whether or not something is dropped. That makes no rational sense. And I guess when writing the article, was really just worried about players not being able to mitigate that risk entirely, but erred too far on the side of wanting to allow players to completely protect themselves, like 100%. Almost like buying the most expensive insurance packages so that you just know that you can get everything back. But I don't think that should be on the Star Atlas side to provide that level of coverage. I think that if that level of coverage is ever offered, it should be a third party provided tool, and we wouldn't disincentivize those offerings. We wouldn't promote them. That would just be up to the players if they want to take part, engage with those third party providers, right?
Yeah, that segues into one of our points. I didn't mean to cut you off, MJ. We were really leaning towards, since the whole goal of Star Atlas is the DAO, right, to be decentralized, we just wanted to also make sure, and you really clarified that, saying that you're not going to be the provider. We wanted to create the free economy, right, because a player playing in no risk zone doesn't need the same insurance that, a high risk zone player needs. So I think there's going to be, a room for commerce there and economy for different players to create different ecosystems and insurances. So that answers that question as well. Thank you. And MJ?
Yeah, it's actually
Rip.
We lost you, MJ.
It's major reason, right? So the thing that triggered me was this, was exactly that, right? It just looked like it was pointless doing PvP, which what you described does sound like it would address it for the high risk zone. But what about the medium risk zone?
Yeah, so that was the next topic that I think we should segue into. It's like, why would somebody want to commit a bounty in the medium risk zone if there's not enough incentive? And I think we certainly won't open up the medium, not certainly, but we're leaning towards not opening up the medium risk zone for permanent destruction of assets. So, and with saying that, it's hard to then justify dropping salvaged materials when you just destroy a player enemy in the medium risk zone, because then that would cause inflation, too much inflation. You'd be dropping salvage, but then the players are recovering their entire ship back. So I was thinking, maybe the cargo gets dropped. But another thing that should be considered is that there's going to be the banished factions, and there will likely be, and we're working through things like this, likely be gameplay associated with doing those offenses in the medium risk zone, where maybe a faction will reward you for engaging in those type of activities.
So really kind of what we're hearing is the medium risk zone is a segue between PvE and PvP, like a split.
Yeah, essentially. Essentially, it's the transition period between the security zone and the high risk zone. It's not intended to be the primary PvP area. However, that can happen, and it'll likely happen due to particular niche instances of wanting to steal certain resources, or completing a mission for a banished faction, or something that's more less. How do I say this?
Key.
Yeah, it's just it'll be less organically chaotic, like the PvP high risk zone areas, and more bounties will. There might be reasons to conduct them because the factions want certain things done, or there's like objectives, or there's things we're baking into the gameplay that might add color to the whole bounty system in there. I agree that as it's written right now, it seems it's hard to fathom why you would commit a bounty, and we don't want to over incentivize it, but we want to build gameplay in there that makes it worthwhile in some cases.
And I'd like to add that in my line of thought, like the medium risk zone would be the central place for PvP, as I see how Star Atlas economy will develop. Like, because as you guys remember, the transition in between the high risk zone rich rewards, like the resources that will be gathered in the high risk zone, they won't probably be manufactured inside the high risk zone, but in the medium risk zone. So it's gonna be the place where most traffic of resources will occur in the game, in my opinion. Like, we'll see the big guild bases, like where they place their permanent, they headquarters, stuff like that. So they will move lots of resources, because as you can see in the map, the safe zone is so small, it won't be able to bridge everyone. So the guild branches, the manufacturers, lots of the manufacturers like Opaljet, like Ogrica, they will live, I believe, in the medium risk zone, since their quests and their XP development are in quests in the medium risk zone. So I believe that the common player will live most of their life inside the medium risk zone. I don't know. What do you think about that?
So yeah, that was exactly what I thought as well, Jose. So that was why I thought you need some incentive for PvP in the medium risk zone.
Here's a thing that I guess might have been lost in this whole conversation, is that not every single PvP in the medium risk zone causes bounties. If two aggressive players, and there's reasons to be in an aggressive stance, attack each other, there's no bounty associated with that. So there will certainly be a lot of PvP in the medium risk zone that has no bounties associated with them.
That makes a lot of sense.
This is nice.
You're making too much sense, Chip, though. Stop.
But yeah, I wish it was easier to communicate all this, but yeah, that's I guess where the whole stancing mechanism comes into play, and we really just want to disincentivize you attacking passive players, like players that don't want to engage in all this hostility. That doesn't mean they won't get attacked by mobs or enemies, but other players attacking them. This is just a protection against their protection for them, that we would have bounties associated with that. But other players in aggressive stances wanting to attack PvE, PvP, you attack another aggressive player, that's just pure PvP, no bounties.
I love that, man. People will be able to raid the fights, will be able to get their loot there, what they are bringing in those thimbles, This will be nice, man.
So theory crafting, I'm just going to say, it most likely the stance has a cooldown, so you can't start getting attacked and then swap it, right?
We're working through the specifics of the stancing, the hostility, the bounties. We have one guy on our team, one of our game system designers, dedicated to doing research and robusting that system out right now. But if we were theory crafting, I would say that there needs to be a cooldown between switching stances. You can't just flick it, you can't just turn it on and off really quickly. There's timing associated with being able to switch.
Yeah, or if you've already engaged, you can't swap or something.
Yeah.
This is
and how easy will it be to switch the items between ships? Like, if I take something in the medium risk zone and I send the loot to a different ship that is in defense stance, then you cannot take that loot that I just got. But yeah.
I guess you're saying, how easy is it to move loot between ships of different stances?
Yeah,
That's a good question. I actually haven't thought about that, because I assumed if two ships are in proximity of each other, they would be in what's known as a fleet, and you would be commanding them as a fleet entity. So moving assets between them is just kind of pretty quick. You're just moving cargo between their hulls, and there is some time associated with doing that. But we're saying 2 different fleets at different stances. To be honest, I'd have to think about that. I don't have an answer for you.
Chip, so I have a thing that I would like to send you, like a document, just like the bomber did, and the pirate squads, just from the position of cop on a patrol in system in a different game, but looking forward to patrolling in Star Atlas, because the important thing is not only how the bounty is distributed. So does the bounty stick to the player, to the wallet, to the modules that he sends in between ships, to the stuff that he has in the cargo hold, and also the timing, because how is going to be realistic the timing part? Because, for example, in Elite Dangerous, you need to jump into Super Cruise to get from station to another station within the system. And that also has the implications of police responding to an incident. For example, if you said, if I understand it correctly, you will incentivize peaceful, let's say, traders, calling the cops on a guy that has a bounty that they can scan, then they give up his position or whatever. But then how quickly can the cops respond? Obviously, in the easy zone, they respond quicker, right? And that kind of stuff. I would like to really send you this document.
Oh, yeah, I'd love that. And, I'm trying to think through how quickly the cops would respond. In my mind, there will be like nodes of cop presence, and I guess as you get farther out into the medium risk zones, that those nodes would probably be either farther apart, or the cops' ability to respond would just take longer. But there is this whole traveling mechanism we're working through right now, where you can warp. There's a warp cooldown, and then so a player getting away, will likely warp immediately, but wherever they warp to, they will likely not be able to warp for a certain amount of time. So they might be sitting ducks for a bit.
Right. This part is very interesting to theorycraft, because you can only get as realistic as you can when you're developing something this bleeding edge, So how are you guys looking into the system of traveling above the speed of light? How is this inspired in the game?
I don't mean to interject, but could we also just forward it back to the high risk and the looting, etc.? Don't mean to go too far off the combo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just rounding that out, there's sub warp speeds where you're going relatively slow, and then there's warping, and there's cooldown associated with that. But I guess the one question that wasn't able to answer out of that conversation was that the bounty, what is it attached to? And for now, it's attached to just the ship, not necessarily the crew in there. But you were also asking if the bounty is attached to the cargo.
The modules.
You made a good analogy earlier with Skyrim. So I think what you're saying is, we know when you stole an item there, it had that red, stolen mark. Is it on the item or is it on the player? I think really is the question.
It's the item that's stolen that metadata will still persist. Like, it's known that the original owner of that item is now an item whose original owner is not you, is sitting in your cargo hold. So the stolen item will persist, but the bounty is stuck to your ship.
Okay.
Yeah, because then you're still operating other ships all over the place, and those don't have bounties on them, and we don't want that now your ship back all the way on the other side of the map is getting arrested. That's not what we want. We want the bounty to be localized to the actual ships that conducted the crime.
That's wonderful to hear.
Makes a lot of sense.
Honest.
Chip, I would like to ask a question about the medium risk zone borders. Is it possible for one faction to, set a faction motion on vote and decide to attack another faction and suppress their borders? Or the one faction trying to expand their borders to the high risk zone, making it become a medium risk zone. Something like that possible?
We're exploring how we can make the borders of the zones, not necessarily the high risk zone, but the border between the security zone and the medium risk zones fluid. We're exploring how we can make it so that it's potential to expand it, or if you lose control of it, it goes back into medium risk instead of security zone. So things like that, we're trying to see if we can add that into the game. But as far as faction initiatives to attack other factions, not necessarily looking at doing that quite yet, because there is a peace treaty, so it would be against the lore for factions to be like having these faction approved war like activities that are on a macro scale happening.
On that war topic, would there be limits on assimilation tiers for territories depending on zones? For example, like this is a very specific example, but for example, if I'm in mud, is there potentially the ability for mud to assimilate in the high risk zone as a core territory for them to completely, dominate a region and be able to mine and produce in a certain region in the high risk zone? Or will core territories be available to assimilate in the security zones?
So I wouldn't necessarily assume, I wouldn't necessarily say that you can create new pockets of security zones that are faction owned in the high risk zone. You can create pockets of security zone that are well defended or well militarized, but are owned by the players or the DACs. They're not necessarily affiliated to like MUD proper. They're affiliated to players who are in MUD.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Chip, another question that I have is that do you guys are playing about the regional DAOs? I know that that's not specifically on maybe your side of the gameplay design, I don't know. But the medium risk zone, for example, it will be composed of 100 regions or something closer, like 5 regions or something like that.
You're asking how many regions in the medium risk zone?
Yeah, something like that.
It's hard to answer that question right now because I'm not sure what you mean by region, and what have we're building out the map, and I guess I can't commit to saying it's this many star systems or this many sectors. So I guess we'll have to hold back on answering that question.
Okay.
But notionally, you can assume that the medium risk zone is bigger than the security zone. Like the sizing of the map that is in the article, that's kind of notionally what we're going for.
Okay, I was concerned about the politics aspect of the regional policy DAO, how big will be the regions that each player will be able to control through a regional DAO?
But it wouldn't necessarily be a player. It's not going to be a player. It's going to be DAX. So it's player owned in a sense.
The community of that region.
I think just to rephrase what he's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is what is the reach of the Polish DAO?
I mean, it depends on the player's side of things at the end of the day for that, to be honest. Depending on if a DAC wants to overthrow another DAC and so on, it depends on if you could align with another DAC, maybe, for instance, combine your polis in order to overthrow that other DAC in that region and so on. So it's more so a player judged and everything like that when it comes to those kind of things, I would say, compared to systematic or system judged.
Was there not a DAO
the decision?
High risk?
Say again?
Is there now a DAO in high risk, Chip, though? Was there not supposed to be DAO?
No. I'm referring to medium risk. I'm not referring to high risk.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was a bit confused there. Sorry for that.
Yeah, no, I'm not referring to high risk. Sorry.
Is that Ronan I hear? I haven't heard your voice in a long time, bro.
What do you mean? You heard me yesterday.
Oh yeah. No, I was just wondering if you were ready to make the announcement.
Oh yeah, no, I haven't heard his voice in a while. Oh no, it must be weeks now.
I guess the last time I ever heard Ronan in a public setting.
Oh, that's true. I was on the what's his name on Ash's thing. When was that? On Monday, I think it was. Yeah. Was it Monday? No, it wasn't.
Tuesday.
Oh, it was Tuesday. Oh my gosh, my days are so mixed up.
I have a question about the authorities. So I thought I heard you say there might be static like spawns for. I'm just calling them authority, like cops or whatever you want to call them. But so is it going to be? Do you think it'll be like a 5-star system like Grand Theft Auto, or will it be more like Mega City Judge Dredd, where they don't show up to many, calls, but if they do, God help you?
When I've talked to Danny, we like the idea of like that star system of levels of intensity.
Okay, cool.
Oh yeah. So that's what we're notionally looking for or looking towards is as you increase your bounty, we assume that at some point your bounty becomes like kill, not just dead or not just alive. Now it goes into just kill on sight, and not only do the cops have more forces dedicated towards tracking that bounty down, but also players will see a higher Atlas reward associated with tracking down and neutralizing that bounty.
I got a question for you, Chip.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so just going back to the risk zones, it's Riddick here. So my question is, so you guys were saying earlier that there was not a lot of reward for the medium risk zones, but that doesn't come from just killing ships, right? Like if you're going from a security zone to a medium zone, the loot category would be more rare. You'd probably have more resources that you could mine on planets, things like that. It's like a more dynamic thing. It's not just if you kill someone, you don't get their asset. But like I was thinking about it, just from playing different games, there's certain games that they have. If you're doing like a mining mission, let's say, and you're a pretty passive stance, and someone kills you, and someone wants to take your loot. Say when you first initially went out, you could have like a supply box which includes the items that are very precious to you that you took on that voyage that you could surely get back, and then everything else is lost, like you said. What do you think of that kind of system for?
It reminds me of the RuneScape Wilderness, where you have 3 items that you won't lose.
Amazing.
So you're saying potentially like a strong box or some sort of not black box, but where you get a special module or special item, you can put things in there, and then those won't be like looted or something.
Yeah, so let's go. So let's use an example, just like hypothetically. Say I go out, I'm fully armored, or well, I guess at the first stage it's just not going to be like that. But let's say I go out and I have some sort of rare resource that I was taking to something in like some maybe let's call it a space station with a currency that I needed to buy something as a module for my ship, say. And I was traveling there, and I get shot down. But I have a box, like you said, like a black box or something like that, that I can recover for a certain amount of Atlas or something like that. And then the player gets, a percentage of whatever else I had that was rare or something like that, because it's a medium risk zone. It's higher than a security risk zone sort of thing.
I'm not sure. I think if we were to pull on that whole string, maybe the box is like heavy, secure, and there's like beacon associated with that, and then a pirate takes you down, steals the box, but now you can track it down and try to get it back. And they can't necessarily open the box, or it takes time or a special skill or a high level in the pirate guild to be able to open those boxes. But I guess notionally, it's just if we're trying to keep things logical, I don't know why that a box like that wouldn't be lootable, right? But
well, no, the box isn't with you. So like, I guess I should have clarified that. Like you were talking about a third party sort of deal, right? So say you go to a vendor and the third party vendor is able to recover your gear with whatever method that they use. Say it's a medevac or it's a evacuation ship of some sort, in-game kind of processing, and you are able to go back to him and say, hey, like, can I get my stuff back because you paid an upfront cost already to do that, to insure insurance on it. Say like 3 items.
Essentially, that would just be insuring your cargo in medium risk zone as well, right? And I think that again, that could likely be a lucrative third-party insurance provider business model. You're this high traffic merchant or freighter in the medium risk zone, and you just want to ensure that all of your shipments are insured up to a certain value in case you do get, ransacked and looted. The insurance provider, knowing that you have a 90% success rate of successfully making it across, like they will insure you up to a certain value, and then if you get attacked, you can reclaim a certain amount of value. But I think all of that could be third party.
I think this I think this could be really cool where, like, if you have a strong box, like let's say a pirate kills me, I have a strong box, they take my strong box, eventually they can open it or whatever. But if I get killed in PvE and my strong box just sits there, eventually the janitor guild picks it up and it goes to salvage wars.
You're in good hands with Space State.
And then it could go down, because then we could feed salvage wars. That would be cool.
And yeah, you can even take it further too. Like if someone steals someone's storage box, they get a bounty, but also the bounty states that they have a storage box belonging to this person, so you get a certain percentage of Atlas if you return it to that person. Or it could go deep, but I don't know. It's just an idea.
My storage box is empty, and it was just a ruse.
Basically.
It's just kind of baby alien kush toy.
The storage box thing's kind of a stretch, but it's fun to think about. I think overall, just if players might go as far as to insure their cargo in the medium risk zones as well. I think that might be something that players might want to do. But again, all this talk about insurance is likely third party provided, and then definitely considering the idea that cargo in the medium risk zone would be dropped upon death.
So I think that's important, because whilst that box stuff is interesting, it's just pure theory crafting, right? If we get back to the topic, we didn't talk about insurance. Are we saying that's definite that the DAO and the developers won't provide insurance, or is that still?
Yeah.
It can't provide definites, but what we've talked about in the back is that it's most likely going to be a third party provider, or we would want to encourage those services be provided by the community at large, and then we would over time, it's going to be a while before the high risk zones come to fruition. Over time, we would continue to reevaluate what, if any, type of insurance model do we provide, but right now we're not committing to doing that.
Okay. Again, Jack started some insurance company by the community that's playing Irish Cell. Can it introduce those insurance?
I had a hard time hearing that.
Yeah, sorry. So that's why they have the traffic is picking up.
Same problem, buddy.
I don't think we can hear you correctly, actually.
No, cannot. I think it was saying something regarding like can that option of insurance start being provided now in a sense, or something like that, or I don't know. That's what I know.
Can the community or DAC start its own insurance company? Like, can we provide insurance ourselves?
I mean that's entirely up to you guys, I would say, at the end of the day. Like, but I mean, like, it's also going to depend on like how's your methods of like calculating whether or not somebody was legitimate in the whole thing and so on, which makes it a little bit harder unless you're going to use the SDK in order to make your own third-party integration in order to track that stuff. But
I do think while we would allow players to develop their own third-party services, we just wouldn't be able to commit to providing any like legal protection. Say regulation comes down and player provided insurance is like some sort of infringement in certain zones, like Star Atlas as a company wouldn't be able to protect that because we're not offering that service. So that would be the only thing that would add color to that, is that while players or community or DACs can choose to offer these services, we're not able to like protect that legally or I guess endorse it, kind of thing.
Yeah, buy everywhere.
Yeah.
Basically do your own research on that.
You know, before we even got to this whole discussion with insurance, that was one of our key points as our own DAO, right? Since we are a PvP guild, we're of the mindset that insurance was going to be something needed for players. So we're really happy to see it develop into this. And even better to hear that we can not only have it provided, but also do it ourselves.
Yeah, there's going to be, not even just insurance, there's going to be all sorts of player-generated services or even like, we're seeing these guild tokens and just DAC infrastructure being built, and it's crazy to think how much, because this game is there's a lot of permissionless transactions that are happening. Like, here's an example. You get a bounty, and your bounty requests that this much Atlas is sent to this address. It doesn't necessarily mean that you, as the person who committed the crime, needs to send the money, the bail money. Your DAC can permissionlessly send the money to that account, and now you're free to go again. So there's going to be all sorts of services that, because there's permissionless transactions or permissionless I guess elements of our game, that all these services will be by default like possible and enabled without us even having to lift a finger to enable it.
That's great to hear.
So just on, like we talked about before, about destruction of things. So how will it work? Is the idea that there's some sort of escrow, that when you go into the high risk zone, your ship is in some sort of escrow type account? So then if it gets destroyed, it's not down to the player having to take some action. You know, so what you don't want to have is some situation where the other party can do something that means you don't get your loot.
Yeah, so in general, unless things fundamentally change, whenever your ships are in the game, they are held in the game's escrow. And so it's not like you're playing this game and then simultaneously your ship gets destroyed, but you immediately send your ship out of the wallet somewhere else so that you still retain ownership of it. Like, no. Like, the way it works is your ship needs to go into an escrow account to even be playing in the game. So you wouldn't have control over what happens with it if it gets destroyed. The game smart contract does.
Perfect.
Amazing.
We were just talking about the loot.
Can I add a little flavor before we move forward with some more questions? Like, I just want to say that we are here, like, everything that we are talking is subject to change. Just in case, I want to be clear of that, and that we are here theory crafting together with the community, just so Chip can also speak more freely. You know, nothing is defined like
nothing is set in stone.
Game systems are subject to change. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, you know, everything is. We get that, right? But it's more about directionally what kind of direction you're heading in. Yes. You know, what's being described here is a much better direction than what was described in the paper. What would be great would be to see an update to that paper to reflect some of what's been described. Again, as you say, totally subject to change, but it demonstrates the direction is more acceptable to PvP players, who want that high risk, high reward kind of gameplay.
Yeah. So well, almost like let me step in here. Yeah. So first off, thanks Santi for saying that, because it just want everybody to be leveled with a lot of this is just the current direction. It's subject to change, and we're a lot of theory crafting here. And then to answer the MJ, what you just said, we're definitely planning on in the next week or so, just updating the article to reflect some of the new idea, and then we'll likely just take out a lot of the details associated with insurance itself and just say for now it's intended to be optional and likely third party provided, and leave it at that. That way players don't get the impression that it is likely that we're going to provide that. I can't speak with definitives. There might be a situation where we take on an element of that, but for now we're just saying that it's going to be third party provided. So all of that is to say that targeting updating the article in the near term to reflect these discussions.
Third party is a dangerous thing because it's out of your control how it's going to work, to be honest.
The thing about that whole concept is we can't control what third parties do since it's all permissionless and decentralized. So all we can probably say is be aware of these services if we don't think that they're fruitful or they're dangerous to the community, right? We can choose not to publicly endorse anything, or we can, if we get to that point of there's all these insurance providers, it might behoove us as Star Atlas to review them and maybe make recommendations, but we certainly wouldn't, I guess, there's no way for us to prevent third-party services from happening, is all I'm trying to say.
Hey, Chip, I got a quick question for you. Just going back to escrow. So let's say you have a ship that's a GAL-1 ship. You go into the high-risk zone. It gets blown up. It gets destroyed. You lose it. What happens to that ship? Is that ship going to be placed on the marketplace again, or is it just gone forever?
The intent behind the GAL-1 ships is those supplies will not go up, or I guess to answer your question, the way we're currently thinking about it now, based on these discussions, is that ship would get burned, and the total supply of GAL-1 ships for that model goes down by 1. But
yes,
there's obviously the components and modules that something would get dropped, and maybe you get some other like resources back or something. But the answer is, based on these discussions, likely that just the ship itself gets burned, and the total amount of those ships available now is at least the GAL-1 ships, not necessarily the player crafted ones, would be decremented by 1.
And you'll receive a cool achievement like "Welcome to Star Atlas."
Yeah, you got wrecked.
On a splash screen saying welcome. Hope you enjoy your stay.
Hope you enjoyed.
Thanks for playing.
Yeah.
Your ship is important to them.
You get a nice message from the Pirate Guild.
Well, yeah, we send thank you cards to everyone, so just be on the lookout.
Almost like those Assassin's Guild cards with the bloody hand. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like it's
mail, and just say thanks. We appreciate your services or something.
We've got a guild like that here.
Yeah.
They use the same hand, I believe, but they're the black hand, not the red one.
Nice.
Yeah, guys, I liked the discussion, and I'm really excited to see the gameplay in the high risk zone, man. Without every pirate running amok crazy and the big guilds ranting you guys, it's gonna be fun.
I have another question about looting or scope. If I destroy a ship and the crew escape pods, can I capture them? Can I put a bounty on that? towards the account that was playing.
Am I taking hostages?
Yes.
That'd be awesome,
man.
So right now, the way I understand escape pods work is that when a ship hits critical health, there will be a chance number associated with how many crew get out safely, and then the other crew would obviously die and get burned, like burned in the NFT sense, like they no longer exist. But then those escape pods, the crew that did make it out, and this is high-risk zone gameplay I'm talking about, you wouldn't have burned crew in the medium-risk zone. But in the high-risk zone, the ones that made it out in those escape pods, the question is, can the enemy player either collect them and then like almost do this what's the word?
Ransom?
Yeah, ransom to get it back. Can the player shoot them down and destroy them permanently? Don't have answers for that because I don't know. There's some balancing things there, and it just not sure. I'm not sure what would be the best approach there, to be honest.
For me, bounty hunting should work both ways.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because now bounty hunting works only towards the good side between quotes there. But yeah, how is bounty hunting for the bad side or the dark side gonna work?
Like, can you put on like a hit on people?
Well, dude, the dark side just does what they want. That's why they have bounties. So you go out and you kill who you want, when you want, instead of doing it by the law, by being a bounty hunter. Even though I do believe they should have player-made bounties.
Yeah, player set bounties would be amazing, man.
That would be more of a hit, less a bounty.
I'm a gangster.
And the bounty requires you to perform an act, like a malicious action. A hit is just saying, F this guy, let's kill him.
Yeah, it makes sense.
There's going to be hits to it.
Oh, for
There's
sure.
going to be a hit. There's going to be hits regardless if there's a mechanic for it or not. I mean, we know that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I recall that EVE Online has that mechanism in there, right? Or can you set hits on players in EVE? I'm not sure if anyone knows that. But
yeah, I don't know that, but I know if you got open kills, you could just, it's almost like griefing, but it's not, you know what I mean? You just chase down your prey like a bounty, but it's a little harder because you don't have the mechanics of the game helping you. So you get paid more for it.
Yeah. Going back to being able to take like the escape pods, I feel like if we were to enable it, we would have to limit it in some way, as in you need special space on your ships to accommodate escape pods or something such that you can't just go around collecting everybody's crew that easily. There needs to be a limit or some sort of
or a specific ship, like the Calico Evac, you're only able to pick them up, where things are more specific. Doesn't
Yeah.
I agree.
Throw it back using your tractor beam so you could only hold one at a time.
Maybe not necessarily the tractor beam. The tractor beam would be the one that pulls it in, but just specific ships are the ones that are able to hold the emergency pods. It's not necessarily just do you have enough cargo space and now you can hold like 300 emergency pods. Like maybe it's special ships or special modules to be able to hold and steal other players' escape pod crew.
Yeah, like the break.
I could see right now you got Slave One rolling around, just a freaking slaver ship. And you just put him to work.
The Calico Evac Slaver, is that a ship that would pop off?
Just like force him to work in your minds.
Well, maybe, and this is pure theory crafting here, but there's a mechanism for you to just brainwash them and make them your crew now.
Yeah, we were actually thinking about that.
Yeah.
Fucking slave collars.
We got some
Sort of indoctrination method where you're able to just get them to just join your crew over time, but they're resistant. Like the higher level they are, the longer it takes for them to be indoctrinated into your NFT crew.
That's super fucking sweet, man.
Yeah.
I mean, in classic piracy, right, most pirates gave the option to join the crew, so especially to slaves and the like. So I think that'd be cool. You know, I don't think it works for real players, but I do think the idea that you posed of acquiring their crew and having them basically turn to your side over time, depending on their experience, is really interesting. And as I mentioned that, I want to touch on the subject of a lot of games, especially in hardcore mode, it's very punishing when you die in terms of experience loss. Has there been any discussion on experience loss, or what that looks like in the game, or just any bit that you want to touch on regarding experience and the interaction with PvP?
To be honest, right now, experience is unidirectional. We haven't really talked about penalties associated with losing experience yet. Not throwing it off the table, but full transparency, that hasn't come up yet.
Okay, thank you. Good to know.
Yeah. I
hey,
do.
Chip,
One thing. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I got a quick question for you. You said there was a black hand roaming around as a pirate guild, because that's mafia guys.
They're pirates. It's called Mano Negra. Yeah.
Yeah, the Black Hand started out in Sicily. It was the first actual mafia on the planet. So that's actually a mafia-themed hand. Just gonna put that out there. Doesn't feel too good, huh?
Are you saying
I'm taking up with all the pirates. You see?
I think the mafia are saying they've got beef with the pirates.
I'm pretty sure.
Ironically, the mafia managed the power by protecting from pirates and thieves and stuff like that. I mean, they helped more people than they just ran around and hurt random civilians.
Exactly.
So, if we're really getting real on the history, I mean, piracy is in a similar position, right? I mean, who are they really stealing from? They're stealing from the King of England.
Well, the pirates, yeah, they started out as privateers and ex-naval.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It was about freedom and being repressed in the Navy. You know?
Yeah. Piracy and thieving are two different things, right? Piracy is the idea of being free and living for your own sake, right? Everything you do is for yourself. Thieving is for no reason, out of maliciousness.
Yeah, exactly. There's a difference between being
you got to look at the Somali pirates. Somali pirates are not exactly what we're going with these. You know what I'm saying? They're not privateers at all.
Look at me. I'm the captain.
We're going super off topic. I love the conversation, but we are going super off topic. Not sure if
guys, can you hear me?
But in the terms of piracy, like I wonder. So if you're in the high risk zone, would there be a chance for you to capture the NFT and make it your own instead of rather burning it? You would essentially be able to take control of it and do that all again, like you said. I'm the captain now.
Yeah, so that was something we wanted to explore. Was could you capture other people's ships? So, immobilize it and capture it rather than destroy it. And then also, like we talked about, was take hostages and potentially convert NPCs to your crew.
Yeah, also, that whole concept of potentially breaching their hull and then clearing them out from the inside and then taking over the ship. Danny and I have talked about that. We just haven't added a lot of fidelity and committed to that gameplay yet. But it's not off the table. It's just not something that we've prioritized yet. But it very well could make it in the long term.
Good morning, guys. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hey, Chipo, I have a question for you. Sorry, my mic was not working, so I'm a bit behind in the chat. But I have one question regarding the ships of the GAL. I already asked this to Danny, and look like the ships of the GAL is not going to have any visual difference between the copies and the originals. Can you confirm that?
If Danny confirmed it, then I have to just go with what he said. I haven't heard of us making any differentiations between what they look like. There has been discussions about some sort of metadata associated with Genesis ships or Gal ships versus player crafted ships. It sounds like that's something we're exploring to ensure that we reward players that were early OGs of the Star Atlas and that bought the Genesis ships and reward them by making those more valuable. But as far as aesthetics associated with them, I'm not sure. It sounds like Danny said no.
Yeah, that was my idea. Because it was more fun if like someone arrived to a planet with the OG ship and say, oh, that guy, without knowing the metadata and all the thing behind the NFT, but the others can say, oh, that guy you see from the beginning. Imagine this in 5 years' time is going to be more important than today, right?
You will have a unique ID, so based on the ID, you will be able to tell that.
I got an idea. What if you had some sort of badge associated to the Gao ships? And let's say a pirate comes and destroys that ship. They steal that badge and they say that they claimed a Gao 1 ship, for example.
I kind of want to touch on that if you don't mind, because Chipto, you were mentioning the breach, but I think we were referring to without the breach, because I remember you discussing at a high level that we wanted to avoid low-level ships exploiting the breach for higher-level tiers, right, like a capital, etc., how that didn't make sense. I think that the discussion in terms of capturing was that the reward of the ship would be worth more than destroying it, in the sense of the tractor being sent, right? If you got the ship to 1% down, and you could say, all right, we're going to keep the ship instead of destroying it, would that be an option?
Yeah, Danny and I have talked about a mechanism associated with something like that. Just haven't fully explored how that'll work.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
It could be like, well, I don't know if this is right, but it could be like an achievement. If you get a Gal 1 ship, however, you get the achievement, and the achievement gives you a drop that is cosmetic or a trophy or whatever that could then be stolen or traded, or I don't know.
I get this whole conversation about the Gal stuff. I think in the long term, assuming the community like wants it and asks for it, there'll probably be, like, I'm talking years, there'll probably be bandwidth associated with eventually creating skins that only can go on the Gal ships or other things. But what we're having to balance here is that we could put our artists on creating these specific skins or put our engineers on making the Gal ships like fundamentally different right now. But we're trying to prioritize just getting the game out, and then these things that we're talking about, these special like other incentives are more a bit on the back burner, but it doesn't mean we can't get to them eventually, right?
Yeah, makes sense. That's okay.
Gypto, I have two questions. One about the escrow and one about the crew members.
Sure.
On the escrow, so we basically give you guys control of our NFTs, and then whatever happens out there, that's the resolution. We either get it back or we don't. Does that apply to cargo? Like, will that be under Star Atlas's control until we like resolve it, bring it back to the security zone?
Yeah, so like cargo in the ship is going to exist in the same exact escrow that the ship's in, but there will be ways to get your assets in the game, whether it's the ship or the cargo or whatever, back into your wallet, and that'll likely be through nodes in the game like space stations or other safe areas where you've gotten, not necessarily ones in the high-risk zone, I'm not sure yet, but there will be special areas you need to get your assets to get them out of the game and into your wallet, where you can now sell it, or send it to other wallets or what have you.
Maybe like a capability of space stations, like you have to check in with a space station, log it into your wallet basically before it's actually yours and not lootable.
Yeah, exactly. I just went that whole construct. If you're thinking about the high-risk zone, imagine that you're chasing an enemy and then they get back to their space station, and then as soon as they're in the space station, they withdraw their ships, and now you attack that space station, there's nothing in there for you to like, so we're going to have to think through that hard and like figure out where is it appropriate for players to be able to withdraw assets from the game back out of the game into their wallets, right?
Cool. And when it comes to NPC crew, I mean, I don't know. I sort of assumed that NPCs would be sort of like working stiffs. So if you captured them and you paid them more, theoretically they'd just join your side, right? Or I guess, and what it sounds like you're saying though is that there will be, what would you call that? Attributes. Like the crew would have a loyalty meter, and that would be how unlikely they would be to work for other people. Also, if you are putting attributes on NPC crew, wouldn't it make sense to have a defense? So if someone did breach and your group was just rough and tumble, they'd repel borders, kill anybody who came through the breach, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So as far as the whole mental fortitude associated with resisting going to other crews in the event of getting captured, not sure. I think it would be tied to some sort of loyalty meter or some sort of experience. So yeah, TBD, but that'd be what I would think we would do. And then as far as what was the second part? I kind of lost track of the second part of your question.
Well, I'm saying that the NPCs basically should have, it sounds like what you're saying is they will have characteristics like they're so good at working on this level of engineering, so you go and buy an NPC who's, like Kaylee from Firefly, that's the person who works in your engine room. But they could also have attributes that would be like resist boarding, not being able to be bribed to join other people's crews, things like that.
Yeah, so agree that crew will have attributes that could be as varied as resistance to boarding or things, or resistance to capture, things like that, but also I guess, what is it, not proclivity, the attributes associated with how good they are at a certain crew slot, whether it's the pilot slot or the gunner seat, that there will be attributes associated with it will have an inclination towards certain roles, but that doesn't mean you can't slot them in the other roles. They might not get experience as fast. We're exploring those mechanisms now. So yeah, crew attributes is definitely something we're expecting to bake into the whole crew system.
And just last little thought, but maybe modifiers for commanders, like a certain commander, the never been boarded commander, or if you succeed in repelling borders at one point, you get a modifier for your crew for the next time borders come on board.
Is that like a temporary buff you're talking about, or they earn new attributes or new?
Well, they could earn new attributes, or you've been selling the company's been selling so and so the legendary captain. Well, that legendary captain may have a modifier that applies to the whole crew as long as that person's in charge. It's just a thought.
Yeah. Things like that are certainly possible. Just haven't. It's going to take us some time to map all that out. And crew is so the way the timeline is like ship missions and ship configuration, and we're working through a lot of those dynamics and metrics, and then crew and land and space stations. So all that's to say is that's crew right now isn't a priority, but we're certainly thinking about it and mapping it out loosely, but we haven't given it too much detail yet.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
So I had to be the party pooper here, but we are already nearly at an hour and a half here. So I would like to ask you, Chipley, how are you with the time? I know that you have a busy schedule, man.
I was actually expecting to be done at 6:30, so 2 minutes left. So you have a good timing.
Okay, perfect. So let's close here. Thank you very much, Chip, for joining and for answering all the questions. It was a lot of fun. I know that the whole community really, really, really appreciates it. So thank you very much. And I will invite everyone, if you want to stay, probably the voice chat will continue. But this is the official end of the Atlas Brew. Thank you very much as well, Jose, for co-hosting today with me. And of course, again, Chip, and also everyone who joined, who asked questions, or even if you just listen, we love you. Thank you for being part of this. and we plan to host more events like this one, so everybody can just be informed about Star Atlas, where we are going, and everything. So thank you for joining us today, and I will be posting a Google form now on the Atlas-brew channel. So this is just for feedback on the events that you guys would like to see from my community side. So feel free, if you want to help us, feel free to fill it, and we really appreciate your feedback, and it helps us to be better as a community. So thank you everybody for joining today, and thank you Chip, especially.